The metal of the handcuffs bit into Dr. Elias Vance's wrists as he was slammed against the cold stone of his own front door. "I told you to get on the ground. Where's the product?" Officer Robert Sterling's voice was a jagged blade of arrogance. The professor, a man of dark complexion and a titan of constitutional law, didn't flinch. He looked the officer in the eye and spoke with a terrifying academic calm. "Officer, you aren't just violating my rights. You are currently providing the live-action evidence for a federal lawsuit that will end your career. You have exactly 60 seconds to realize you're at the wrong address before the Dean of Columbia Law and the police commissioner arrive for dinner." The sound of a heavy textbook hitting the pavement and the distant, approaching sirens signaled the start of a massive legal reckoning. The Upper West Side of New York was bathed in the amber glow of a late autumn sunset. Dr. Elias Vance, a distinguished man of dark complexion in his late 50s, was dressed in a sharp, charcoal gray wool coat and a silk scarf. He stood before the ornate, wrought iron gates of a multi-million-dollar brownstone, his new home, in his hands. He carried a heavy, leather-bound volume, The Fundamental Principles of Fiduciary Duty. He was a man who moved with the quiet grace of extreme intellect. As he fumbled with a set of silver keys, a black and white cruiser screeched to a halt at the curb. Officer Robert Sterling, a man whose face was etched with a permanent, smug sneer, stepped out. He didn't see a professor. He saw a target. He didn't see a homeowner. He saw an intruder. "Hand where I can see them. Step away from the door," Sterling shouted, his hand hovering over his holster. The injustice was immediate and fueled by a deep-seated, arrogant assumption that a man of Elias's complexion could not possibly belong in the zip code. "Officer, I am simply entering my residence," Elias replied, his voice a deep, resonant baritone that carried the weight of decades in a courtroom. "I said hands up. I've had reports of suspicious activity and unauthorized transactions in this block." Sterling mocked, stepping onto the sidewalk. "You look like you're looking for a quick score, not a keyhole." Sterling didn't wait for a response. He closed the distance in 3 aggressive strides. The wrongdoers are loud, arrogant, and confident. He reached out and forcefully grabbed Elias by the shoulder, spinning him around and pinning his arm painfully behind his back. "Search him," Sterling barked to his junior partner, Officer Miller, who looked hesitant but followed his superior's lead. "Let's see what medication you're moving today." Elias Vance suffered a physical violation with a stoic, heartbreaking dignity. He felt the cold stone of the brownstone, his sanctuary, pressed against his cheek. The physical contact was an abuse of power designed to humiliate. "Officer Sterling, I assume that your name based on your badge. You are currently engaging in a warrantless search without probable cause," Elias stated calmly, even as his breath was squeezed from his lungs. "You have not articulated a specific crime, nor have you observed any illegal conduct." Sterling laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "I'm articulating that you're a trespasser until I say otherwise. And this book..." Sterling snatched a heavy law text from Elias's hand and tossed it onto the damp sidewalk. "Nice prop. What is it?" "Hollowed out for the cash." Maya, a neighbor from across the street, a high-status character, stopped her car and rolled down the window, her face pale. She recognized Dr. Vance from the news, knowing he was a finalist for a federal judgeship. She started filming, her hands trembling. "Officer, please." "That's Dr. Vance," she cried out. "Move along, ma'am. Police business." Sterling roared back, his ego swelling as a small crowd began to gather. He felt powerful, untouchable, the king of the sidewalk. He tightened the grip on Elias's wrist, forcing a grunt of pain from the professor. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. 2 more cruisers arrived, lights flashing red and blue against the expensive brickwork of the street. Sergeant Hayes, a veteran officer with a reputation for cleaning up messes, stepped out. He saw Sterling holding Elias against the wall and immediately assumed the threat was neutralized. "What do we have, Sterling?" Hayes asked, his voice dripping with bored authority. "Caught him trying to pick the lock at 422, Sarge. Claimed he lived here. He's got no ID on him, just his fake law book." Sterling lied, his arrogance blinding him to the growing legal storm. Elias Vance looked at Sergeant Hayes. "Sergeant, I have my identification in my inner coat pocket. I also have the deed to this house on my phone, which is currently being crushed against my hip. If you continue this detention, you will be liable for a Title 42, Section 1983 civil rights violation. The crowd gasped. They weren't just watching a profiling incident. They were watching a masterclass in legal defense. A low-status relative. In this case, Leo, a young delivery cyclist who often saw Dr. Vance at the university, pedaled up to the line. Yo, that's Professor Vance. He's the guy who wrote the textbook on the Fourth Amendment. You guys are in so much trouble. Sterling turned on Leo, pointing a finger aggressively. Get out of here before I charge you with obstruction. I don't care if he's a pope, he's a suspect. Sterling successfully silenced the low-status intervention, but the seeds of his own destruction were already sown. The pressure mounted. Elias began his lecture. While pinned to the wall, he started citing case law. Terry versus Ohio, Mapp versus Ohio, Illinois versus Wardlow, breaking down every single mistake Sterling was making in real time. The crowd was mesmerized. The professor was turning his own arrest into a courtroom. You see, Sergeant, Elias said, his voice steady. Officer Sterling lacks reasonable suspicion based on articulable facts. He is relying on a hunch colored by racial bias. In New York, that's not just a policy violation. It's a career-ending fiscal liability for the city. Sergeant Hayes began to feel a chill that had nothing to do with the New York wind. He looked at the fake book on the ground. He picked it up and opened the cover. Written in gold leaf on the inside was, "To Elias Vance, with gratitude for your service to the Supreme Court, Justice Sotomayor." Hayes' face went ghost white. He looked at Sterling, who was still trying to force Elias to his knees. "Sterling, let him go," Hayes whispered, his voice cracking. "Not until I finish the search." "Sarge, he's resisting," Sterling shouted, his ego refusing to let go of the drug dealer narrative. He pushed Elias harder, his forearm pressing into the professor's neck. At that moment, a sleek black SUV with official city plates pulled up. Two men stepped out. One was Dean Arthur Hayes of Columbia Law, and the other was Police Commissioner Marcus. They were 20 minutes early for dinner. The flow of the story shifted instantly. The silence that fell over the block was absolute. The commissioner saw one of his officers physically assaulting a man who was slated to be the next major judicial appointment in the state. Just before the shocking reveal, we want to take a quick moment to thank you for your support, love, and kindness. We wouldn't have come this far without you. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue to bring you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Commissioner Marcus walked toward the scene, his boots clicking rhythmically on the pavement. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He simply stood 3 feet away from Officer Sterling. "Officer," the commissioner said, his voice a low, terrifying rumble. "If you do not remove your hands from Dr. Vance in the next 3 seconds, I will personally strip your badge off your chest right here in front of this crowd." Sterling, confused and still arrogant, looked up. "Sir, you don't understand. He's a suspect. He is the man who is going to be reviewing your department's conduct in federal court next month." The commissioner interrupted. "And he is my host for dinner." The professor, finally released, stood up. He didn't brush off his coat. He didn't show anger. He simply picked up his book, looked at the shaking Officer Sterling, and adjusted his silk scarf. "Class is in session, officer," Elias said quietly. "And I believe you just failed the final exam." The silence on the Upper West Side Street was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the police radios. Officer Robert Sterling's hand hovered in midair, trembling as it retreated from Dr. Elias Vance's shoulder. The smug sneer that had defined his face for the last 20 minutes vanished, replaced by a mask of pale, sweating terror. Commissioner Marcus stepped into the center of the circle. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked only at the 2 officers. "Sergeant Hayes, did you authorize this detention?" Hayes, who had been holding the book signed by a Supreme Court justice, swallowed hard. I arrived late, sir." Officer Sterling claimed he had a positive ID on a trespassing suspect. "A suspect?" the commissioner echoed, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You are looking at Dr. Elias Vance. He is the former Deputy Attorney General, the current chair of constitutional law at Columbia, and as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, the president's leading nominee for the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. The crowd gasped. The ultimate authority had spoken. The man Sterling had treated like a common criminal was, in fact, one of the most powerful legal minds in the United States. Elias Vance stepped forward, his calm demeanor far more terrifying than Commissioner's anger. Commissioner, I have spent my career teaching the youth of this city that the law is a shield, not a sword for the arrogant. Today, Officer Sterling decided the law was a plaything for his own biases. He didn't just arrest me. He conducted a lecture of his own, one on how to systematically dismantle a citizen's Fourth Amendment rights. The underestimated person is revealed as powerful. Elias wasn't just a professor. He was a man who could rewrite the very policies the officers lived by. The power shifted entirely. Sterling was no longer the hunter. He was the prey of his own incompetence. The commissioner turned to Sterling, badge and gun. Now! Sterling's voice was a pathetic whimper. Sir, I was just... The report said suspicious. There was no report, officer, Elias interrupted, holding up his phone, which had been recording the audio the entire time. I've been monitoring the precinct scanners as part of a research project on response times. There was no call for this address. You saw a man of dark complexion with a key to a luxury home, and you decided I was a criminal. That isn't police work. It's a personal failing. The wrongdoers go silent. Sterling slowly reached for his belt, his hand shaking so violently he struggled with the holster. In front of the cameras, the neighbors, and his own superior, he was stripped of his authority. The public humiliation was absolute. He had tried to use physical force to steal a man's dignity, and in return, he lost his career and his reputation in the span of a single evening. Instant karma. Sergeant Hayes, the commissioner continued, you will escort Mr. Sterling to the precinct. He is suspended pending a full civil rights investigation. And Sergeant, you're going back to patrol for allowing this ego-driven disaster to escalate. As the disgraced officers were led away, the neighbors, the same people Sterling thought he was protecting, erupted into a mixture of applause for Professor and jeers for the departing cruiser. The arrogant bully had been reduced to a cautionary tale. In the aftermath of the incident, Dr. Elias Vance did not simply retreat into his home. He used a settlement from the city, which he won easily, to establish the Vance Center for Constitutional Policing. The center became a mandatory training ground for every officer in the department, with Dr. Vance himself delivering the opening lecture to every new recruit. He had restored dignity to his neighborhood and created a system of accountability that saved countless others from similar fates. His life improved not through the wealth he already possessed, but through the massive impact he was now able to have on the justice system. He had enacted deep reflection within the city's leadership. The calm ending saw a community more united, and a police department finally forced to reckon with its internal biases. Arrogance is a blindfold that makes you believe power is found in the ability to suppress others, when true power lies in the ability to uphold justice. Never mistake a person's quiet dignity for a lack of resources, and never assume that a badge or a title gives you the right to judge a book by its cover. The truth is, when you treat someone with contempt based on your own bias, you aren't revealing their character. You are exposing the cracks in your own.